Hello everybody and welcome to another tutorial. Well, it's not really a tutorial, it's more in a kind of an info about how things can go. I mean, how it's actually possible to get a shutter, a Sinar shutter, Copal shutter, up and run again if something, I mean the slow gears, maybe a little sticky or so, or the one of the spring is a little weak. So well, let's have a look inside and see what we can possibly find out. Well, this shutter, I have actually been into it before and do some investigation about it, and well, it was a bit sticky on the slower exposure time, and I figured out, okay, it's the slow gear in here. So if I fire the shutter, and it seems to work really good, even if I set it to something 1 second. It also works really good. I have just double checked with my shutter tester, and it actually works really good. But how does it actually look inside? So let's see. I've done some high-speed videos about this just so we can see how it actually works. Now, to come into the actually shutter mechanism and all the gears, and so there are 4 screws, one there, 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 and there, and we need to unscrew it. I use a 2.4mm flathead, which fits really good in here. So it's good with a magnetic screwdriver. Sometimes it's not really good, but in this case it works pretty good. And there. So, and the last screw, and then we can just take off the plate, the front plate here. Now be careful, because when you lift off the cover here, there is a ring all the way around that you have to set incorrect again. Now, there's not really anything special about that. So now if we take a look in here, this ring here is actually the connection to the aperture, which you actually put on and can actually check, I mean control the aperture. So when the shutter is firing, it will also move the aperture that is connected to. Now let's see if I fire the shutter here. You can see it will move on, but if I fire the shutter, and so there, and it actually works pretty good. Now, before taking anything apart here, I think it's the best, just my opinion. Maybe there are others that have different opinion about that. Well, if you want to set the aperture connection ring onto the correct place again, well, I just set a mark here on the gear wheel here and on the ring, and also over here, so there are 2 marks there are in line, so I know exactly where this ring has to sit. I haven't found a repair manual for this shutter, so I just make my own investigation, and there are maybe someone that have other ideas about what can be done and how it is done. Well, this is just my opinion and my experience. See, if we look into the gear here, this is the escapement, the slow gear, and it actually have all the from 8 seconds up to something like, if we set it to 8, 1/8. Well, there is a bit working, but it goes up to, yeah, and you see it also work on 115 and on 130. There's slightly, and also on 160. Not really anything. There's no movement here because the slow gear is simply inactive because of the cam here that pushed the this yeah, I don't know what's called, but this gear wheel out, so it's out of the movement part. So it's only from 130 and all the way over to 8 seconds. But what if the slow gear was extremely slow? I mean, way too slow. What can actually be done? Well, since I've been into the shutter and actually cleaned the escapement here, I will just show you how it can be taken apart. So if we take out the escapement, it's held in place by 4 screws. One there, 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 and there. There is a guide pin up here, so the the escapement can only sit in one position. It cannot move that way or the other way, as I see it. So if one wants to unscrew the 4 screws, one needs a good fit screwdriver. In this case I use a bit, screw bit, which is 4mm point 0.5. So it's the width of the screw head here is 4mm, and the thickness here is 0.5mm, or half a millimeter if you want. Now the screws here was extremely tight, so I use some nail polish remover again and simply add just a few drops on the screw head here and let it suck in on all 4 screws. And since I have been into it before, there's no issues. I will only show how you actually do it. Now on the cap on, and now we can simply unscrew the 4 screws. So the screws has to sit really good, and they come loose. So maybe the screws in your shutter sits extremely tight, then you simply need a good big driver handle with the screw bead on. But the screws in this shutter was extremely tight. So there. So all 4 screws are out. And now I just let the one screw sit here in the screw bit. Now to get the escapement out, it's good to actually set the exposure time here up to something like 1/8 of a second, and press here on the bottom part here, and simply loosen the escapement and hopefully pull it out. I think it was something like that I have done. Hold on a second. Yeah, so if we press on the shutter cable, one can free it up, and then it's out. So this is how it actually looks, and we'll have a look on it. So if we free it up and unlock the escapement, so it can just move. This part here was not really moving at all, so it could not actually move. So 1 second was way too long, and 8 seconds it could not at all do anything. But now it works pretty good. I put it in, I soak it down in, isopropyl alcohol 99% and let it stay there for, well, a few hours, and simply blow it away with a blower, and yeah, it came back to life. Actually, hold on. Well, I will not put it down in the isopropyl alcohol, but it was just what I use in this case. I could have used lighter fluid, but well, sometimes I use one solution and one solvent, and sometimes the other. It depends. Well, to actually lube the escapement here, because it needs some lube on each of the axle end here only, not on the gear wheel. No, it's only here on both sides, and you simply use I use very thin watch oil in this case, and where the serine is easy to apply, and only a very tiny drop. And then when you add the oil here, simply wipe away the rest of the oil, also this here, and then give it some movement. It's most easy when you unlock it here, press it on here, and let it just move. Also, this pin here has to work free. If it doesn't work, well, the shutter will not fire as it should. So I can just put it in again and say that's fine. In the beginning, when I took it apart, I simply set scratch here because I didn't know, also on the other end, because I didn't know if there was any adjustment hole that could move the shutter like this. I mean the escapement, move it one side or the other to maybe adjust. But how to actually adjust? Well, I would think, without knowing it, because I do not have a repair manual for this, but I would guess this is the way you probably adjust the fine-tune the speed of the slower exposure time. I don't know. Maybe there are other people out there that's knowing. Well, let's see. So I can simply add the escapement into the shutter again, and it's actually easy to, if you move the not fire the shutter, but move it, and simply can get the parts in here. Let's see if it can work. And so there. Maybe there is a smart way of doing this. I don't know. So one actually have to press it all the way over. You see, has to, this part here, the wheel underneath has to be pressed all the way over, and one can simply add the escapement into place. And now it sits where it should. so I can just add it on again, but I will actually use some just to tighten the screws. I will simply add some Loctite 243, just a, oh, that's more than enough, and simply add it not on the screw thread but on the head, something like that. I mean on the side of the head, and it will actually be very good. If you add it on the thread, screw thread, it could possibly, I don't know, it could possibly come into the other side where the shutter blade is. It could be, I don't know, but this is why I actually added on the side of the, I mean the screw head here. Oh, there was something a little, but we can just wipe it away. And simply gently tighten the screws. So, and now it sits really good. And we can just move this out of the way so it sits there, and then we have more free space to actually get the screw in. So there. So now, and now it seems to actually work pretty good. And 1 second is 1 second. I have checked with my shutter tester, and it's absolutely very good. Now, another thing that I discovered that was when I set it to 8 second or 6 second or 8 second, the escapement would simply get stuck, so it could not get any further. But now it's much better. So if I fire it, the escapement will work 8 seconds and close the shutter. Now the problem was, it was not only the escapement that was the problem, but it was also this spring here. I will guess it's the main spring for the shutter. So when you actually move, this spring here will actually be tightened up and make it will simply pull back the cam and close the shutter again. Now, it was simply too weak. So maybe someone will say, no, you didn't do that. Yes, I did. I simply cut away a piece of spring from here. So the spring was actually that part longer. Oh, could we have some autofocus? Yeah. So it was simply longer, but it was also weaker. So I simply cut this piece away, which was actually about a let's see how much it was. It was actually 3.02 millimeter, and I don't think it will do any damage to anything, because the spring has been weakened over years, but now it works okay again, and simply bent out the oh, come on, and simply bend out this part again and tighten it to the end here, and now it helps a lot. So it's actually working again as it should. But before, it wouldn't return as as it should, because if we see here, when I set it to some faster exposure time, the spring here will actually be tightened up more. As you can see there, this arm here will move all the way over here, and the spring will be more tightened up. So, and now it's on B. Of course it will not do anything, but if I set it to 160, as we can see here, and I fire the shutter here, it will be pretty long and of course more tightened up, and it will simply make the shutter to work faster. And of course on the slower exposure time it was not correct on the shutter speed. So now it actually works as it should, as I see it, and especially this part here, it was completely stuck when I turned when I moved this here. It because the spring here that moved this here was a bit weak, but also a lot of old oil and dirt. So now it actually works as it should. How good is that? Maybe you can get repair parts for this, spare parts, I don't know, but it works again as it should. So that's actually very good, as I see it. So I can simply just put the cover on here again. Of course the ring here for the aperture, and of course since I set a mark here on this gear here, you possibly can see it. I know exactly where this should sit when it's correct. As you can see here, click. That's it. So now this shutter is back to life again. So that was actually that, and I can just put the cover on again and say, oh, fine. Maybe other people have some ideas or knowledge about how to service a Copal shutter, Sinar. Yeah, it would be good if someone else share their knowledge that way. I think there are many people out there who has an old shutter that is not working proper, so this could be the way to actually get it up and run again. So that was actually all for me. So hope you can use the info in this video. So that's all. Bye bye.